Hello everybody, welcome back to Diary of Fiction, and welcome to a new exciting vlog, because today I just thought, why don't we just spend a day together, a bookish day together, just having a little bit of a self-care time, taking ourselves on a bookish date. I think that would be wonderful. I really woke up and as I was getting ready, I was like, you know what? I really want to go to the bookstore today. So I think I'm gonna take myself to the bookstore with my current read and sit there while I read. My current read is The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. I am reading the third and final book in the popular series and I'm scared. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm currently on page 220. The other night when I was reading this, I was like, I think on page 80, and I started reading at 10 p.m. I read a chapter and then I was like, hold on, one more chapter and just one more chapter and just one more chapter, and I ended up finishing all of part 1 without noticing. And that was insane to me because I feel like it does take me just a few seconds to get back into the world, get back into such a heavy fantasy, but I think past 80 pages of the book, it started getting pretty intense and I'm just really worried and very anxious about everything that's going on. I am concerned about the ending. I know it's going to be a good ending to the trilogy and it will make sense. I just don't know. So anyway, that's the book that we're currently reading, so I thought it would be a great idea to go to the cafe and read. I love this Barnes & Noble that I go to because it has really nice seats, and also I love their shelves. They're so different. They're like wooden and it's just a peaceful place to be at. I do want to show you, however, before we go, 2 new books that I got from the library. Actually, let me show you 3. So yesterday I took a little walk and I went to the library. I loved it. I am really challenging myself this year to go outside a lot more. I feel like sometimes I stay within the comfort of my home and I don't get to explore outside as often, and so I want to do that more often this year, whether that just be by taking walks or that's why I actually really do want to get into audiobooks. I know for my February TBR, I was kind of like, because I'm intimidated by them, if I'm honest. Like, I don't know which one to pick on the spot and like which one I should listen to. I did listen to the last few minutes of A Man Called Uwe because one of you recommended me to listen to it and it was beautiful. And then also I got my husband into audiobooks. I'm not even reading audiobooks, but he is now listening to the second book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, because that's a series, or at least book 1 is a book that we both read and loved. So he's not reading the second book because he just loved it so much. We were actually both of us listening to it on our way to dinner the other day, so I do really want to get into audiobooks because I think I could listen to an audiobook while I go outside and go for little walks. So again, if you have any good recommendations for audiobooks, I would really appreciate it. One audiobook that I do want to listen to is the second book in the One Dark Window series, so Two Twisted Crowns. I started listening to it actually and then I didn't continue, but I think I listened probably like 20 minutes of it, and I do think I will like that book better as an audiobook just because it's slower paced, at least the beginning of it. Anyway, those are my thoughts. If you have any recommendations, let me know. So yes, I went to the library, picked up my hold. Honestly, I was surprised how quickly I was able to get this book, and that is Heartless Hunter by Kristen. I'm so sorry that I don't know how to pronounce their last name, but this is a book that I have seen everywhere and I've seen more positive reviews than anything else, and because I'm in this mood to read a good fantasy romance, I think this is the one that might do it for me. It is a young adult book and it's like about witches, and if you saw my videos from last year, you saw that I was really into reading books that had witches in them, but I didn't really get to read like a full-on like fantasy book about witches, and this one I think we're following a witch and a witch hunter and they're gonna fall in love. Kind of reminds me of Legend by Marie Lu. If you have read those books, maybe you'll understand, just because of that kind of like cat and mouse dynamic where the main character was seeking for the person responsible for her brother's death and she thought it was Day, and then they actually cross paths. She doesn't know that that's Day because nobody really knows what he looks like, and they fall in love. I wonder how it's gonna happen in this book, how they're gonna meet and why they will end up falling in love, but I'm really excited. Enemies to lovers doesn't get more high stakes than a witch and a witch hunter falling in love. Her deadliest enemy or her greatest love. Then I have Pure Nessie by Susanna Clark. I'm really excited to read this. This is quite a short book, but a book that I've heard people say that it's amazing, it's life-changing, and that you should read it without knowing anything. So I know nothing about it. I'm gonna jump in blind and see where it takes me. And there is this blurb in the back that convinced me to read it, and it says, "It is a miraculous and luminous feat of storytelling, at once a gripping mystery and adventure through a brilliant new fantasy world, and a deep meditation on the human condition, feeling lost and being found." That was what convinced me to read it. And then it says, I already want to be back in its hunting and beautiful halls. I'm so excited to read this. So excited to read this. So maybe we could do a vlog where we just read fantasy for a week, because the majority of the books on my TBR plus these two are all fantasy, and we can mood read within those options. And then the third book that I got, this is actually a recent purchase that I did, and it's not a fantasy book or a fiction book, I should say. It's actually a non-fiction book, and it's Fake Magic by Creative Living by Elizabeth Gilbert. I went to the bookstore the other day looking for inspiration and just motivation, and I don't know. And I saw this book, and I had already seen it around. It's a book that I've also seen, I think, Olivia Rodrigo show in one of her interviews, but I had seen like, I think like a cousin of mine read it as well, so I was pretty familiar with the cover. I just never thought I would read it myself. But then I opened up, you know, chapter 1, and I was like, you know what, let me try to read it, because something about creative living beyond fear sounded very inspiring. It literally says, what is creativity? The relationship between a human being and the mysteries of inspiration. So I read the first chapter, and she ends the chapter with the story about this professor. He taught creative writing, and so he asked the student, what do you want to be when you grow older? And the student said, I want to be a writer. And so he responded, let me find it. He smiled at the girl with infinite compassion and asked, do you have the courage? Do you have the courage to bring forth this work? The treasures that are hidden inside you are hoping that you will say yes. So that's what convinced me to read this book, because honestly, I have been trying to get over that fear of, I guess, writing and also bringing that maybe into my channel. I feel like I've been having a little bit of a difficulty doing that, so I just wanted to read this so that I could read it every morning and start my days with a creative mindset and just feel inspired every day. So I am reading this. It's like on my nightstand right now, and I'm trying to get through it in the mornings. I haven't really done a great job. I think the first day that I got it, I did, as it typically happens when you get a new book, but I will continue to read this. So those are the 3 books that we just got. So why don't we just go to the bookstore now and just spend some self-care time there.
Watch as it breaks down beside us, when we've risked everything for love. On the outside, always looking in, we'll still hold on to all we could have been, to all we could have been. Would you still take me for a fool if I let give it all away for you? So take me home. Ever been before. Those photographs that once took pride of place stand no more. How long should we try and make things last till we fall? Would you still take me for a fool if I let?
Hello guys, it is the next day. It's such a gloomy day today, but I thought for today I wanted to do something fun, or at least I think it's fun, because I wanted to make a list of the 25 books, or maybe less, maybe like top 10 books that I want to read in 2025. I have originally made one on my iPad. I made it in the beginning of the year. Let me just show you, but I'm looking at it right now and I'm thinking that I need to update it. So first I'll include like screenshots on the screen, but first I did this one list with all the books that are on my physical TBR plus other books that I might have seen myself reading at the time when I did this. Looking back at it, I don't know how I feel about it. I think my mood does really change as as time just passes by, but then I made a shorter list with like, these are my priorities that I actually want to focus on. It's a much narrowed down list, but looking at it now again, I think I want to be a little bit more picky. I tried reading Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco, and I know I added that on there because it was on my physical TBR, but I've since decided to unhaul it. I know it was such a pretty cover. It was a cover buy, and it was beautiful, and that's why I wanted to love it. But when I started reading it, I realized I don't think this is a romantasy book that I would love, so I'm just just gonna be unhauling it. I just don't think it's for me. But there are other books on here that I feel like are gonna be 5-star predictions, and I think I want to narrow this list down to a list that I can for sure say like I feel like this is gonna be a favorite. So we have R.F. Kuang's new release, for example, and I have the best husband in the world because he literally pre-ordered the book for me for Valentine's. And I cannot wait for August until I have it. I have since also reorganized my shelves, and I now have a little part of my shelf that is just dedicated to R.F. Kuang books. The only book that I don't own by her is Yellowface because I borrowed that from the library as an ebook. But I do want to buy it eventually, but I have a little space for her new release. But I thought we could print out the book covers, put them in a little envelope, and just have them there so that whenever I finish reading one of these books that are like priority 5-star predictions, books that I really want to read this year, we could have a little spread and put them there every time I finish one. I hope that makes sense. If not, it will probably make more sense once I start actually making it. But it's like something really simple, but I think it will be really fun. And we can go over some of these books because yesterday that I was at the bookstore, I did see a couple of them and I took pictures of them. And eventually, I think once I've read, maybe in March, I mean, it's March right now, maybe in April or May even, we can get new books. For now, I'm just really focusing on the ones that I own, unless there's one that I really want to read. But honestly, like looking at my TBR, there's only just either fantasy, new series, or historical fiction, and I feel like I need a little bit more from other genres, so we never know if I'm gonna get new books. But there are definitely some that are on my radar that I really want to read, and we can talk about those after we print them out. So we can go ahead and do that. But oh, reading update as well. I am now on chapter 20, which is page 340 of The Burning God. It's that far into the book. This is all I have left, which is insane to think about. Like, this is all I have left. This is all I have left for it to end. Now that I'm overthinking it, I'm like, I'm gonna procrastinate to finish it. No, but I feel like honestly, I was talking about it with my husband this morning because I was telling him everything that was going on, which I can't do right now because I don't want to spoil it for you, but he was like, I feel like this is the fastest that you've read out of the 3 books of the series. And that's so true. Like, for some reason, this one, it's just like I'm reading it fast, and it's probably because I'm just really intrigued about how it's going to end. And there are also like a lot of different things happening. It became really intense just a third into the book, and there's just so much happening. So much happening. I cannot predict. Well, I have an idea of where this is heading. I just don't want to accept it. So I'm trying to think of other ways she could end the series, but there might just be one way. But I don't know. I'm terrified of it, but I really do want to know. So I think we're gonna finish reading this in this vlog, and you're gonna see me react to the ending of my favorite series. I hope you enjoy. I feel like every time I pick it up, I have to stop myself from continuing to read if I'm going to bed. Last night, I think I left it off at a part where I think I could take a pause. You know, the night before then, I was just like in the middle of everything going on and I just could not stop. So once I pick it up again, because the part where I'm at is like, so many things can happen. We'll see. So I'll see you in a little bit when we start doing the printing and all that. So it is the next day. I have here the pictures that I printed for the book covers of the books that I want to read in 2025. I ended up narrowing down the list to 10 books. So I want to go through them one by one and tell you why I want to read them. I also just wanted to tell you what I ended up doing, because instead of creating like a nice little spread on my bullet journal and adding the books on there every time that I finished reading one of them, I thought of a better idea that was very therapeutic, not gonna lie. I got this other journal where I recently started writing down just thoughts on books that I've read. So the idea for this journal is just to have, again, a reading log of all of my thoughts on the books that I've read this year, or for as long as I can go, I guess. So I've already kind of printed out book covers of the books that I read this year, and I sat outside the other day and wrote down all of my thoughts, and it was so nice because that's what I'm trying to practice this year, just journaling a lot more and having that sort of moment with myself. So what I did is I actually wrote a letter to myself about the books that I was excited to read this year, which ones I was excited to read, obviously all of them, but which ones I was the most excited to read. And then I searched up, I'm not going to show you the letter because I just want it to be personal, but I searched up how to do a little envelope, and that's where I'm gonna keep all the book covers. That way, if I end up reading one of the books in this list, then I'll just get the book cover from there and then go to wherever I'm at on the journal and paste it on there and write all of my thoughts. Probably include the fact that it was on my top 10 books to read this year, and I thought that was so beautiful. It was so therapeutic. I had such a nice time. So let's just go over all the books that I printed out. First up, we have Bear Town by Frederick Backman. This is a book that I am so intrigued about because I've seen it everywhere lately, but also because I just read my first book by Frederick Backman, which was A Man Called Uva. This book, however, is about a small town and about hockey and how hockey plays a very important role in the town. Something happens and then it's about how everyone just deals with it. I'm pretty sure it's more of a character-driven story, which I love very, very much. Something about Frederick Backman's writing is so quotable, and I had such a great time annotating A Man Called Uva that I think I want to do the same with this book. I was in between this one and Anxious People. Anxious People is another book that I really want to read, but for some reason I'm more drawn to this one right now, so we will see. But I cannot wait to read this. I've heard amazing things. I also love the book cover. I love the book itself. When I went to the bookstore, I took a picture of it because I knew I was manifesting getting it soon. I cannot wait to read this. Yeah, I just am really excited. We have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. So you'll see in my wrap up, I actually read not just Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, I also read book 3 in the series, which is just for the summer. So the only book I have left is Part of Your World, and this wasn't a book that I think I would have prioritized at the beginning of the year, but it's crazy how now, after reading her books, I actually really do need to pick this up because I love her writing. I love the way that she talks about mental health in her romance books and how her characters feel like real people. And yeah, I think I'm a romance reader when it comes to Abby Jimenez. So yeah, I believe this is sort of like, by the cover, I think it's like a city girl and a small town guy. That's what I'm getting from the cover, but I'm not quite sure. I'm just gonna jump in without knowing what it is about, but I am excited to read this. And then we obviously have R.F. Kuang's new release. I'm so excited for this. I cannot wait to have this in my hands. Something about the fact that I'm already getting through every single book that she's written, and now that I have this book pre-ordered is so nice, and I just cannot wait. I'm so excited. I'm gonna read everything that she writes. We have Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This one is by the same author who wrote one of my favorite books ever, which is Clara and the Sun, which is a dystopian book. And this one, I'm not really sure if it's also categorized as a dystopian book. I don't know too much about it, and that's kind of how I want to go into it. I prefer to go into books sometimes blind, unless I've heard about it a lot of times, then it's kind of inevitable not to know what it is about. But for this one, I think we're following like a group of kids who have special abilities. I believe they're at this boarding school, might be wrong, and they're just kind of like isolated from the rest of the world until they get to leave the boarding school and come in contact with reality. Not quite sure, I might be making that up, but really excited to read this. It's won the Nobel Prize. Like I said, I love Clara and the Sun, so I just want to read more by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have the 2 books obviously that I got from the library, but also because I actually was really looking forward to reading this. So we have Here Nessie by Susanna Clark. I need to redo my nails. And then Heartless Hunter. I guess I talked more about both of these in the beginning of the video, so I won't talk about them. But yeah, we have A Theory of Dreaming by Ava Reed. This is the second book in the A Studying Drowning duology, which when I read A Studying Drowning, I thought it was a standalone book because it wraps up and concludes nicely, and so I didn't think we would have a sequel. When I randomly searched up Ava Reid the other day and I saw that she was coming out with a new book and that it released this year, I was like, what? Well, immediately I knew that I had to read it. I haven't pre-ordered it yet, but the cover is so beautiful. We have the two main characters who I love very much, and then we have a couple books that I feel like I've mentioned before. Like, obviously, I think I'm talking about Miss Martin a lot. At this point, I just need to actually read it. And then Rouge by Mona Awad, which is the last book by Mona Awad that I still need to read. So we'll get to that when I'm in the right headspace, because you definitely have to be in the right headspace for her books just because they're a little bit more unsettling reads. And then finally, The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali, and this is the book that I've had on my TBR the longest, so it has to be read this year. I have been putting it off because I know it's a very emotional and heavy read, but it's also quite short, so I think I need to prioritize it and read it as soon as I can. So those are all the books that are on my top 10 books to read this year. I'm so excited. I'm gonna put them in the envelope in the back of this journal, and that's where they're gonna stay. And then in terms of reading update for The Burning God, I am now on page 425. This is how much I have left. I think I'm either gonna finish it today or tomorrow, so I'm gonna film my reaction to the ending. There's not much I can say again without giving anything away, because I feel like anything that I mention could spoil the series for you. I can't even say like characters' names because I feel like that would still be a spoiler. So I will see you when I'm finishing this book, and that would be all for this reading vlog. And for me, I guess.